A lot of retirees that are my neighbors. This was what we planned for our retirement home. We started out back in the 80s, 85, it was 25% liverboards, then went to 20, then 15. Seems to me we're down to like 6 or 7%. And even this year, when I had people that I know that have been waiting for that list to come up, all of a sudden the city said to them, we are no longer issuing liverboard permits. Does that mean there's no more openings, or you're just closing it until you figure this all out within 2 years?
Yeah, so we are limited to 51 liverboard permits. I don't know where we're at in terms of number, but I think as we go through this process, that'll help us understand the complexity of the liverboard program and what that looks like going forward. And so that is why I will continue to tell you, you have to stay involved, be part of the process so that you can discuss the liverboard program as we navigate this process together.
If somebody wants to get in and there is one spot left, would you do that this year, or is it on hold?
I'm not sure where we are at with that. I just don't have that answer right off the top of my head. My apologies.
My name is John Odden. I rent locally. Over the decades, I've been a mariner, and I've done that out of King Harbor, Redondo Beach, Alamitos Bay, Dana Point, Newport Beach. And I've also been a cowboy, and I've ridden through the foothills, and I've seen where John Wayne and his buddies had their shooting hideout behind what we call Coto de Casa today, and how we've turned the valley there into McMansions. And I would just say that here, I sense in the people coming out the heart to continue to paint what the pageant of the masters calls the tableau vivant, the thing in Newport Beach that people I bring, personal friends and business friends, call it an international gem and something special. And it seems to me that because the grantee is out of compliance with some law and we've got fair market value, we've got a thing going on, and this is the fact that there's people painting what makes this zone special, unique globally, a beacon for California. That's what Newport Beach is, a special place. And I'm sad to see that there doesn't seem to be a way to fold in all the heart, passion, and soul that these people paint into living well on the moorings that makes this place so unique. So we may get the fair market value right, we may get into compliance, but will we leave behind a legacy that any of you or me would be proud of? And I don't know how to support you in that, but I see the gap and I see the voice that says we want to do something beautiful together. And maybe this is a start that we've got a lot to do. Good
evening. My name is Ann Stenton. I'm with the Newport Mooring Association. I grew up on the harbor, out in moorings. Did my junior sailing here. I went to Newport Harbor High School. The harbor is my life. My husband and I now have a 44-foot sailboat that we sail. My daughter is 13 and 18 on the boat, but she'll love it someday. I promise. Dr. Dumoulin, thank you so much for coming down here and being with us tonight. I know there's a lot of questions and a lot of people, and we appreciate your time. And Matt, thank you so much for graciously answering questions and working with us. Like many have said before, it's kind of new, and we really appreciate it. That being said, I'm a terrible public speaker, so I have notes, and I will do my best. I would really like to also thank the city, the ad hoc committee, including Mayor Pro Tem Blom and Councilmember Stapleton, for meeting with us in April to discuss these important issues. During that meeting, the representatives of the Newport Mooring Association discussed some practical solutions addressing concerns raised in the SLC staff report related to rates and permit transferability. In particular, we discussed the Southern California Category 1 benchmark rate for docks and mooring permittees, a rate structure developed and regularly updated by expert state lands commission staff specifically to establish fair and reasonable tidelands permit rates throughout Southern California. You mentioned that fair market rate has to be local, but we know that this benchmark rate is local. It has 4 marinas, data from 4 marinas right here in Newport Harbor, which makes it very local. We believe this benchmark provides the city with a clear, defensible, explainable, and equitable framework that appropriately balances the city's obligations under the granting statutes with the long-standing recreational uses that have existed in Newport Harbor for generations. We've also discussed permit transferability. Transferability has existed in Newport Harbor for decades and remains a common practice, accepted practice, in harbors throughout California. If, as SLC has suggested, transfers are an issue elsewhere, we believe that everyone should be impacted equally at the same time. To suggest that it should be piecemeal and have Newport be the only ones to lose transferability first doesn't seem like an equitable solution. We do recognize that policy updates may be appropriate for transferability, but any changes should be implemented carefully, consistently, and with consideration for the individuals and families who have invested substantial time, resources, and stewardship into the harbor community over many years. Our objective is to help ensure the city's response is fair, legally sound, and mindful of the real-world impacts these decisions will have on longstanding recreational harbor users. Again, thank you for your time.
Thank you. If we were a busy one, you'd get in trouble for changing places online, but I'm gonna let you do it tonight. All right, here we go.
Of course. Thank you for being here, especially you guys from Sacramento. I expected to continually hear the quiet, and as speakers have suggested, the State Lands Commission, I mean, at the opening of I've been at every one of your meetings for over 2 years, in person and online. Descriptions of your expertise, how you do this, you do it statewide, and Jeff, you've given a good description of that. But the benchmark report, or the staff report for this rate here, I'm going to quote from it, benchmarks are used to establish uniform rental rates in specific geographic regions with large concentrations of similar facilities, mostly private recreational improvements within the Commission's jurisdiction. The use of benchmarks improves the consistency, transparency, and efficiency in how the Commission establishes rent for large numbers of similar leases, saving time, resources, and money for both the applicant and the state. Periodic benchmark adjustments assure that the people of the state are fairly compensated according to current market rates. Newport marinas were used for those rates. It sounds like there needs to be smaller geographic areas for fair market rates. In your report from December to the city, you did some calculations with numbers from appraisals, and your report says staff is not suggesting that the city must use the above numbers, which are only rough calculations, or that other approaches to valuation are not reasonable. If the city were to adopt the current California State Lands Commission benchmark rate for Orange County, would that be acceptable to state lands?
I can't definitively answer that right now. That would be unfair of me to do because it does implicate some legal questions. Yes. I'm sure you think so. There is no Orange County benchmark. The Southern California benchmark does cover a larger area, and it would generally be inappropriate for a grantee that manages a much smaller locale to utilize one of our regional benchmarks. If we could, if it wasn't prohibitively expensive and time-consuming, we would rather be able to look at more discrete areas and utilize more discrete benchmarks. But we have, it is prohibitively expensive, and we have to manage the sovereign lands that we manage, the over 4 million acres of lands that we manage in the statewide best interest. If we were to utilize public funds to fund that much money for that many appraisals, it would be irresponsible of us.
I would counter that using the Category 1 benchmark in Huntington Harbor 6 miles up the road doesn't mean that it can't be used here. And it's something to think about. And the wording map that you noted in the report, you must report to the legislature if you found a violation. You haven't reported to the legislature. Another map, you're saying transferability has to end. It does not say that in the report. Survey says that, you said that a number of times tonight, it does not say that. The homeowners on the peninsula, not every home is attached to their dock. There's a party's been attorney to city mooring licenses, and there's a case from Newport decided in the courts in 2020 that says even if a homeowner has littoral rights, the city's rights supersede those rights. I want to protect the yacht clubs, I want to protect the homeowners, I want to protect the moorings, the visitors. I still don't, we've met. You maybe understand the exposures here, but a lot of people don't. This is going to, has the potential of going horribly, horribly wrong. And the Harbor Commission is who got us here. Appraisals are who got us here. Local corruption of the appraisal process is who got us here. I've heard from you gentlemen, generally acceptable accounting principles. Fine. Corruption. And the way I define corruption, corruptly import a wrongful desire of a person to cause pecuniary or other advantage to himself or herself or another person. The appraisal evidence covered through public records request indicates that. And if someone doesn't believe me, sue me for libel and I'll bring you to court. Thank you.
My name is Bill Brewer, and like you, I was an employee of the city of Newport Beach for 30 years, starting in
Were you really?
1972. I worked in the planning department and was responsible for many contentious issues and establishing a lot of city policy. So I'm very familiar with the process you're going through, and I'm willing to help. With regards to the appraisal, and I may see it a little bit different, the higher and higher you increase the rates of slippage here, the narrower and narrower the income bracket you are going to be able to serve, no matter where it is, Tustin, Santa Ana. How does that square with coastal access? Coastal Commission wants broader access. I understand conflicts between different jurisdictions, but you're narrowing the accessibility to people of different income brackets, and pretty soon only the rich people in Tustin, or where you're going to go, are going to be able to afford more income, given the cost of voting and everything else. So we got a problem here. You've got two state jurisdictions at conflict. Okay. The second thing is about this is if you're even considering slippage in Newport Beach as part of establishing the value of the moorings, that is absolutely crazy. I lived on board my boat for 9 years. I rented a place called 10 Nights. I was finally driven out when they raised the rent to $242 a month. I acquired the mooring in '79. Okay? If you take that $242 and you apply the cost of living to it, that's, and I did this today, $1,154.44. My last check 2 years ago with a slip in a similar location, similar size, was $3,212 a month. That's a mortgage payment. And there were empty slips in that marina. Why are there empty slips? Because the mooring, the slippage is so high. That's something you ought to look at. State Lands Commission should require a waiting list of at least 10 or 20% of the number of slips in a marina. And you will watch slip rents go down. Certifiable, real people on a waiting list. That's what's driving the problems with rents around here. $3,212 a month for a slip. And that was a couple of years ago. I bet you it's $3,500 a month. That's ridiculous. That's making a very narrow market for people to utilize Newport Beach slippage. And then the same thing is going to go to moorings that keep jacking them up. Okay, second thing about transferability.
All right, sir, and just so you know, I think the timer went off, so I'll give you like a minute more, just because we want to make sure everybody in the back gets a shot. Thank you.
Transferability. This has been going on for a long time. They haven't changed the state laws. We're all in this together. You do not want disparate treatment among peoples on different parts. I understand that, because that's a problem. Okay? So perhaps maybe when we started talking about this transferability years ago, we would establish a fund that was created so that the city could buy the mooring. Yes. Now, if you're going to raise the slip rent and the mooring rent, how much of that is going to go into a fund that's going to be supplemented by the State Lands Commission to make up for all the sins of the way this thing has been managed for years and years and years? And we could probably then start purchasing these moorings, and that would be a very, you can figure out a way to do it so it's fair and it's easy and it's responsible, and start purchasing these moorings from people who have had them. The other thing about value of moorings is the value of a mooring that is close to the harbor department or the harbor master is a lot more, the monthly rent, it should be a little bit higher than one that's between E and F Street where you can't do anything or go anywhere. How about between 7th Street and 9th Street? You know what's there? There's a lot of public access. There's no parking, there's nothing. Down towards the harbor department, the east end, maybe moorings should be worth more there than they're gonna be in E and F Street. Because when you establish rents in a rental market for housing, if it's close to amenities, its rents were more. And there's amenities all over the harbor, and there's some places there's none. So I think you should look at a couple of things in terms of the value of rent.
Thank you, sir, appreciate it. All right, these will be our last two speakers, it's 2 minutes each, and then we don't have, we ran out of time, that was really fast, so, yes, sir.
My name is Brian. I own a mooring and a dock and a beautiful home. I've worked all my life to get here, and I'm watching it slowly. I want to remind you, there's another slide that you don't have. When we had this civil war in the harbor 10 years ago over the dock fees, guess what the result was? Every council member was voted out. Every single, that's why they're not here. They were all voted out. It was monumental. So I'll bring that up, but I'm also saying that when we did those studies, we used the benchmark method to find out what was reasonable. And worked fine. And anyone that's jumped into the benchmark theme will see it very clearly. And it's updated. You're like a landlord in the state of California, and we're paying rent. And you jack up the rent, because it never goes down, for those studies. What is it, every 5 years they're reviewed? 5 years. And we use those benchmark studies. I paid on my mooring right now, I just calculated 100 grand so far in fees. 100 grand. That's a lot of money. Let me ask, when my mooring is empty, what are you going to charge when I have no boat in it? No one's answered that. You can put that on things to do. What are you going to do for the revenue you get when you put a boat on my mooring and you collect the rent? And so far, we don't get it back. We talked about this before the meeting started. I'd like that to be addressed. The city confiscates my mooring, puts a vessel on it. Sometimes it's just because it's been impounded. But that doesn't mean that shouldn't be compensated, because everything I have to do is pay to service it, pay the rental. Okay, but you just take it. It's insane to think about that.
All right, thank you, Brian, for your feedback. We've got 2 more. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Emma Rose Klinger. I live in the Back Bay with my husband over off of Bayside. And 3 years ago, we had this miracle happen where we were gifted a boat, and we just had to find a way to pay for the moorings. So it's been a dream to be here, and the boat actually helped us move out here in the first place. And so I'm up here, and I also want to say thank you to you three. It's been a long night, and I know you've been taking on a lot of questions. And thank you to the NMA for keeping regular people like my husband and I who are not as involved. Thank you to the NMA. So under the public trust doctrine in the California Constitution, the city acts as the trustee of the harbor, and the citizens are the beneficiaries. We are the beneficiaries. And a good trustee doesn't wipe out our investment of its or the investments of its beneficiaries overnight due to its past regulatory oversight. And so under the public trust doctrine and the California Constitution, and the fact that the city has a strict fiduciary duty to be a responsible trustee for us, I wonder if being part of a responsible trustee is administering the tide dams with basic fairness to the citizens who invested in this harbor in good faith under the city's own rules for the past several decades. And so if the state's goal is to transition these public spaces into equitable, you guys mentioned affordability programs in the document for all voters, forcing such a sudden financial loss on current permit holders, such as us who've only had it for 3 years, achieves the exact opposite of that. And so since we're throwing out ideas, I'm going to throw out some questions, and hopefully there'll be ideas for the record. So one, if the city is to revoke private permit transfers and take over the mooring tackle,
would the city uphold its fiduciary obligations by financially compensating recent buyers for the market rate investments they made under the old rules? 2, to prevent the economic whiplash, could the SLC consider a more reasonable extended phase-out period? I know in July 2024, there was a proposal for 4 years. Could it be longer to allow us more realistic timeframes to amortize and recover our investments, fulfilling the spirit of the fair resolution? And then third, I'm hearing the frustration of people not wishing they had more proactive communication about some things more transparently. And I love that we're trying to be proactive here, so I just hope that we continue with proactive, transparent communications about RFPs and other things like that. So that way you're heard of things beforehand instead of after it's done.
Sure, and I think those are great comments, and I think this is part of the process, and I hope that you will stay involved. I don't think I've ever met you before, so nice to meet you, and that is my commitment to you, is that we will continue to have this type of conversation going forward. Yes, sir, you are the last one. Congratulations. You gotta get close to that mic. It won't bite you, I promise.
I'll trust you on this one. First, I'm going to protest the timing. It's hard for the honest working people who are mooring here to get here at 5 when you don't get out of work before 5 and you have a 2-hour commute. Okay, second, FAIR was established when we signed up. And we invested in what we had. It might not be a lot to the wealthy elites and the politically powerful, but to us it was what we had. Now, I also point out that the mooring community predates wealthy elites putting structures on unsuitable soil. And everything was fine. Now suddenly we are the problem. I don't think so. Now, after you seize our moorings without compensation, which we know is the